Hello everyone, my name is Lynne Davis, Robert L. Towne Distinguished Professor of Organ at Wichita State University, School of Music, and we are the Organ Pedagogy class with my students, Nick Maples and David Perez. We are making a video for the Wichita AGO concerning registrations and repertoire and pedal exercises, pedal technique, basic pedal technique. We are here in Wiedemann Hall on the Markussen organ built by the Danish organ company Markussen and Sons in 1986. Both the hall and the organ were built together. And I would like to show you a little bit, although most of you know the organ already from having heard it and seen it up close, but a little reminder about what the console is like, what the different divisions are, and what the stops are would be a good thing to see. The outline of today's video is, of course, registration and registrations through different historical styles. We're examining 3 different periods with 3 different types of organs. German versus French organs in that period, Clérambault and Bach, same time period, early French registrations, Bach registrations, and Romantic registrations, the great builder Cavaille-Coll. The Markussen organ has 4 keyboards, manual keyboards, and a pedal board, 65 stops, and 4 manual divisions, which we will look at. But where do those sounds come from? We have the swell, Brustwerk, great, which is Hauptwerk here, and Positiv. The swell, which is the top keyboard. Swell, when we speak about the swell, it will be here. It speaks from the top box, way up the top, the pipes in the front being a stop that's on the grate. It's a big flute, the whole flute on the grate. Then we come down, the next keyboard down is the Brustwerk, and the pipes for the Brustwerk are right here in front of the organist, enclosed behind those little doors that go open and close sometimes, that are very charming to watch. The main keyboard is the grate. The grate speaks on both sides of this magnificent Spanish trumpet. There, the 2 columns there and the 2 columns there. The first keyboard is the Positiv, and we have those pipes right in the middle, above the Brustwerk, in the central block, right where you see the little star, the Zimbelstern, which of course goes on and off as we like to put some little bells and Christmas music or something like that. And then the pedal, which you can see for the feet, and which we will be examining quite a bit with the pedal exercises. Stop. Stop it. Now, of course, the pedal divisions are on each side with the big front pipes as you see them on either side, the C and C sharp side. So that gives you an idea of where each division speaks out into the room. Now, if the camera will follow me, please. We have these stops on the swell with the keyboard is up here. If you could just lean in on these, Solistino, Voix Céleste, flûte harmonique, preston, plein jeu, basson, trompette, hautbois, clairon, and then flutes, 16, flûte à cheminée, flûte octaviante, nasal, octavin, tierce, couplers, and tremulant for the swell. With the Brustwerk, we go to the other side of the console, and it's just this column of stops with the flute 8, quintadena 8, 4-foot flute, principal 2, flute 2, sifflute 1, cymbal mixture, and the little regale that you will hear, and a tremulant. Right next to the Brustwerk is the Positiv, and this is on the first keyboard here. You have in the documents that are with your packet, you have the specifications of the whole organ, and you can follow along clearly. But these are, as usual, the first column is principals and reeds, and the second column flutes and mutations. So we've got principal 8, principal 4, octave scharf Krummhorn, Spanish trumpet, which we have above Zimbelstern, flute 8, 4, 2 2/3, 2, 1 3/5, quint 1 1/3, which makes up our separate rank cornet. Then next to that, we have our main keyboard, the great. It has an H because in Danish it's Hauptwerk and German as well, but Hauptwerk is the main keyboard. So we have, again, principals and reeds, flutes and couplers. Principal 8, 4, 2 2/3, 2, mixture, cymbal, Dulcian 16, reed, trumpet 8, trumpet 4, a very 50, quinty, 16-foot, whole flute, which is the set of pipes in front of the swell box, and a flute 8, 4, a mounted cornet, which is 5 ranks altogether, chimes. Those are real chimes up in the 3rd story, I believe, and then couplers. Now we'll go to the remaining division, and it is the pedal. Remember, principals, reeds, flutes, and couplers. Principal 16, 8, 4, mixture, 32-foot reed, 16-foot reeds, Posaune, Fagot, trumpet 8, Schalmei 4, then Untersatz 32, which is a wooden 32-foot, Subas 16, Gedeckt 8, 4, 2, and then couplers. That is quite literally, and you might want to get a shot of the Markussen and Son logo that tells us that it is 1986.
Hello, my name is Nick Maples, and I am a junior organ performance major here at WSU. Now for this segment, I'll be demonstrating for you a plenum. A plenum is essentially a principal chorus with mixtures. Now to demonstrate this kind of Baroque sound, I'll be playing for you the chorale prelude Christ lag in Todesbanden, or Christ lay in Death's dark grasp, BWV 625 from J.S. Bach's Orgelbüchlein, or also referred to as the Little Organ Book. The Orgelbüchlein, it's a collection of chorale preludes based on hymn tunes used in the church throughout the liturgical year. The melodies of these hymns are heard in different voices all throughout the collection, using either the soprano, the alto, or the tenor, or the bass, respectively. In this chorale, in particular, the melody can be heard in the soprano. So let's talk about registration for this chorale prelude. The registration that I'll be using is as follows. If you follow me, we're starting with the great. First, we'll put on a principal 8, octave 4, quint 2 2/3, octave 2, and a mixture. Next, we will go over to the Positiv. We will have a prestant 8, principal 4, octave 2, and the scharf. And then we will go over to the pedal division. In the pedal, we will have a principal 16, Subas 16, octave 8, Gedeckt 8, Chorobas, or octave 4, mixture, and fagot, 16 foot. Now, usually a plenum is very nice and strong in terms of sound quality, so for the sake of this, I'll be putting on the coupler, the positive to great. So let's talk about registration for this chorale prelude. The registration that I'll be using is as follows. If you follow me, we're starting with the great. First, we'll put on a principal 8, octave 4, quint 2 2/3, octave 2, and a mixture. Next, we will go over to the positive. We will have a prestant 8, principal 4, octave 2, and a scharf. And then we will go over to the pedal division. In the pedal, we will have a principal 16, subas 16, octave 8, gedacht 8, chorobas or octave 4, mixture, and fagot 16 foot. Now, usually a plenum is very nice and strong in terms of sound quality, so for the sake of this, I'll be putting on the coupler, the positive to great. Now, some of you might be wondering, what if I don't have a 16-foot reed in my pedal division in my organ? Well, do not fret. There are other options if you come across this dilemma. So, other options of registration in terms of the pedal could be coupling the positive to the pedal and or substituting an 8-foot reed in the pedal. So the second registration that I have is as follows. Now, I'm taking off the positive to great, first of all. In the great, I will simply have the principal 8, octave 4, octave 2, the mixture, and I'm adding the cymbal. In the pedal, I will simply be having a principal 16, octave 8, chorobas 4, mixture, and a trumpet 8.
My name is David Perez. I'm a graduate student in organ performance here at Wichita State University, and we're going to continue in the Baroque period. Nun kom der Heiden Heiland belongs to the Leipzig chorale collection, and it is the first of 3 settings of the Advent hymn, Come Now, Savior of the Heathen. The Leipzig chorale collection of 18 chorale preludes contains a variety of pieces in different forms and styles that Bach himself considered his best works, and that were published in a very special collection. Nun kom der Heiden Heiland is an ornamental prelude, and this type of chorale was very popular in northern Germany. In this chorale, Bach takes the cantus firmus, or the hymn tune, and highly embellishes and elaborates it with trills and neighboring notes. When we look at the music, we see 3 distinctive lines. From the bass to the soprano, we find a walking bass in the pedal. Then we find an accompaniment of the tenor and alto, and we find the cantus firmus melody in the soprano. Based on the forms of this chorale, I have created 3 different registrations that will help us to perform this piece and any other piece of this type. For our first registration, we're going to start with the ornamental choral melody on the positive. And we're going to use Gedacht 8, Blockflöte 4, Waldflöte 2, Nassar 2 to 3rd, Tierce 1 3/5, and also we're going to add tremolant. For the accompaniment, we're going to use the grade, and let's pull out the Rock Gedacht 8 and Split Flute 4. In the pedal division, we are going to use Principal 16 and Octave 8. For our second registration, we're going to play the ornamental choral melody on the positive. And we're going to use Gedacht 8, Blockflöte 4, Nassar 2 to 3rd, and Tierce 1 3/5. For the accompaniment, I'm going to perform on the swell. I'm going to use Flûte à cheminée 8 and Flûte octaviante 4. And for the pedal, I'm going to use Sub-bass 16, Gedacht 8. And also, I'm going to couple Rock Gedacht from the grade division to the pedal division. For our final registration, I'm going to play the ornamental choral melody on the Brutzberg. I'm going to use for that Regal 8 and Holzgedacht 8. For the accompaniment, I'm going to play it on the positive, and it will be with Principal 8. And for the pedal, it will be Sub-bass 16, Gedacht 8, and also I'm going to couple the Salicional from the swell division to the pedal.
We will now continue with the second part of our Baroque segment, where we are going to be talking more about the early French. Now, I'll be demonstrating two early French registrations, the plein jeu and the duo. The two examples that I'll be playing are from the organ book The Suite on the Second Tone by Louis-Nicolas Clermont. Now, let's first examine the plein jeu. The plein jeu is simply a principal chorus with mixtures, but without reeds. Now, keep that in mind. This is what separates the German Baroque from the French Baroque. The Germans use reeds and mixtures together, but the French, they use reeds and mixtures separately. Let's look at the registration for the plein jeu. Starting off with the great, we will be putting on a principal 8, Organ 8, octave 4, octave 2, mixture, and the zimbal, which is more, it's a much brighter mixture, if you would. Then we go on to the positive. We will have a prestant 8, gedacht 8, principal 4, octave 4, and scharf. And then we're going to take a slight turn to the swell. We'll be putting on a Bourdon 16. Now, why are we putting on a Bourdon 16? Well, in terms of the plein jeu, it is based on a nice 16-foot foundation. And the Bourdon from the swell, when we couple it to the great, it'll definitely have a nice foundation in relation to the other stops that are on the great. Now granted, we do have a 16-foot flue on the great, but just like what Professor Davis said previously, it's very fippy, very quinty, and thus it's not as strong. So let's go to the couplers. I'll be putting on the positive de great and the swell de great. And then we move on to the pedal. I'll be putting on the positive de pedal, swell de pedal, and great de pedal. And as I play this, you will notice I'll be going between the positive and the great. It's like a little dialogue where there's a small principal chorus mixture, and then there's a much bigger one on the great, as you will see. Next, we will be looking at the second movement from this suite called the duo, which in turn just means a duet. Now for the duo, I'll be using two cornets. And some of you might be wondering, what exactly is a cornet? And don't fret, I will answer that. So let's start with the swell. Now typically, or usually, a cornet is made up of all flue stops. However, in terms of flues, we do not use reeds. We do not use any principals either for any cornet. No principals. So we have a flute 8, flute 4, flute 2 2/3, a 2, and then 1 3/5. And then we're going to go down to the positive, and we're going to do the same thing with flutes 8, flutes 4, 2 2/3, 2, and 1 3/5. And of course, just to make things a little easier, I'll be coupling the swell down to the grate. Now, some of you might be wondering, what if I don't have 2 cornets on my instrument? Well, back in the early French, we actually have other options for registration of a duo. So let's first go to the positive, where instead of a cornet, I'll be putting on a cromor, a very nice reed. And then I will go to the swell, and I'll be putting on the cornet. So we'll have 8, 4, 2 2/3, 2, and 1 3/5. And I'll be coupling the swell to the grate. And I'll be playing the cornet on my right hand and the cromorn in my left. Another option is to actually have a cornet and a trumpet. So starting from scratch, we are going to go back to the positive and we're going to put the cornet back on. So we will have an 8, a 4, 2 2/3, 2, and 1 3/5. And on the swell, we will be putting on the trompette. And thankfully, the swell on our instrument, we have a French trumpet, which makes sense. And of course, I'll be putting the swell to grate on. And just like the previous registration, I'll be doing the cornet in my right, but this time I'll be doing the trumpet in my left.
Let's continue in the suite on the second tone, which is the second Gregorian tonality in G by Clarambeau with 2 more movements. In the 17th century, the Sun King Louis XIV was a great patron of the arts, and during this time, many organists published their works, often including indications for registrations, tables explaining the symbols for ornaments, and additional information on how to perform the music in the proper style. French composers were very specific regarding registrations. They were delighted with their instruments, and we can see that in the titles of their pieces, such as Récit de Cromorne or Solo on the Cromorne, also Basse de Trompette, which means trumpet solo in the bass, and also Tiers-Centile, which is a combination of stops of 8, 4, 2, 2 2/3, 1 3/5, and 1 1/3 in the tenor. In this codified repertoire, the mood, rhythmic flow, and shape of the melodic line were conceived according to specific choices of registrations. And the link between music and timbre is vital to achieve a convincing interpretation. Generally in France, the different movements in a suite are the verses of the Magnificat, which is the Gregorian hymn to the Virgin Mary. The bassochrome horn or trumpet tends to be a vigorous piece full of bold melodic contours. When we look at the music, we will see a distinctive melodic line in the bass and the accompaniment in the right hand. For our first registration, I'm going to play the melodic line on the positive, and for that I'm going to pull out the chrome horn 8. And also I'm going to use the Gedacht 8 for a warmer sound. For the accompaniment on the grade, I'm going to pull out the Baroque Gedacht 8 and split flute 4. For our second registration, in case we don't have a chrome horn on our organ, we also can use a trumpet or a reed. In this case, we're going to use the trumpet on the swell division, and for the accompaniment, I'm going to play on the positive with Gedacht 8 and block flute 4. Our next and final piece in this suite is the Caprice sur le Grand Jeu. And the Grand Jeu is another registration that combines reeds and mutations. This practice of combining these families of stops was very common in the French classical tradition. And the big difference between the Plein Jeu and the Grand Jeu is that the Plein Jeu uses mixtures without reeds, and the Grand Jeu uses reeds and mutations with no mixtures. And now for the registration for the Caprice sur le Grand Jeu, we have on the grade Baroque Gedacht 8 with no principal 8, octave 4, octave 2, trumpet 8, and clarion 4. And also we're going to couple the positive to the grade and the swell to the grade. On the positive, we are going to pull out the chrome horn and the Gedacht 8 for more of a round sound on this organ. And for a stronger sound, we're going to use on the swell division flute 8, prestant 4, octave 2, Nassar 2 to 3rd, tierce 1 to 5th, trumpet 8, and clarion 4. In this piece, Clarambeau gives the opportunity to use in the pedal a reed, a reed stab, if we want to. In this case, we're going to use the trumpet 8, and we are going to couple the grade to the pedal the soul to the pedal and the positive to the pedal. And now I'm going to perform the entire movement, and at the end of the piece you're going to hear the pedal, the trumpet 8, and the two notes that he specifically wrote for this division.